Dick, I have a story for you. It's called A Story of Coming and Going. Once upon a time, there was a family of 5 living in the suburbs of a fairly big city by a little lake. There were 2 adults, 3 children, and a beautiful Siamese cat in this family. The parents were pleased with themselves and their children. The children were happy and healthy and did the things that most children do. They went to school, they played outside, they played indoors, they made friends in the neighborhood, they made friends at school. And the parents did the things that most parents do. They worked and played and took care of their home and their children and their friends and their loved ones. These parents were well educated, well traveled, and they were figuring out the whole parenting plan one day at a time. But there came a time when they struggled with how best to give their children more. Something was missing. They had both had a faith community in their own childhood, and they wanted to give all the best things about those experiences to their own children too. There was a problem. They tried a community like the one that one of the parents had experienced. It was not a good fit. They tried a community like the one that the other parent had experienced. It was not a good fit. They tried creating their own little community in their home. They talked about faith, they celebrated holidays, they had rituals, and they discovered that their children were indeed spiritual and religious beings by nature anyway. And life went on until other children and other neighbors and other classmates started asking questions like, where do you go to church? Are you saved? And the clincher, my daddy said your daddy's going to hell. So the parents decided that they needed some help. They didn't like what their children were learning about faith and faith communities on their own or from outside their own home. One day, a neighbor shared a church school prospectus. That is a word that overeducated Unitarians use to describe a brochure about Sunday school for children. The parents couldn't believe their eyes. There was a place where they could find other people who also wanted their children to learn about rituals and religion and spiritual practices without telling the children their parents were going to hell. They had principles and values and an invitation to all to whom our services appeal. So the very next Sunday, one of the parents took the 3 children to this amazing place with a good deal of skepticism that the people in this community were really who they said they were, but they kept coming, Sunday after Sunday. And the children were happy, and the parents were happy, and they kept coming. And eventually, there were 4 children, and a little dog named Holly added to the family. And the family became a part of the community, and the community embraced the family. And over the decades, and more decades, lives were saved, and lives were transformed. Not just for that family, but for all the other families in the community. And they lived as happily as any family ever lives, ever out. So by now, you may have guessed that the family in the story is my family. But what I want you to know is that this personal story is also a universal one. This particular community, the Church of the River, has saved and transformed lives in a loving embrace since it was called First Unitarian Church of Memphis in 1893. Other Unitarian Universalist and Unitarian Universalist congregations have embraced families hungry for a place that would affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person. The Church of the River is a place that is still doing soul-saving, life-transforming ministry in Memphis, Tennessee. We're still creating a community where every person hears that they are beloved, sacred, and powerful every time they gather. And this program year is no exception. We as a church community have everything we need, all the good people we need, all the leadership we need to make our aspirational goal of creating this safe space for people real. And just like Melinda May, devouring the whale one bite at a time, starting at the tail, the Director of Religious Education will keep taking one bite at a time out of the family ministry goals, because I said I would, every year at every board leadership retreat since 2002. And it will be another great program year, and we won't achieve all the goals we set, but there will be families who are served, and with all of us working together in right relationship, they and we will be transformed. So back to the story I began. I stopped at the point where my family discovered the Church of the River, but there's more. From the time I entered this community as a parent, there's been a DRE, a Director of Religious Education, making sure that children and youth and their families learned about and had the opportunity to develop their individual faith. In 1989, that DRE was Sue Ferguson. The gift she brought to my children, this community, and to me personally, can never be repaid. It was Sue who saw in me my own gifts that I didn't even acknowledge until recently. She asked me to volunteer in the kindergarten in church one year. Later, she encouraged me to attend a Facing History in Ourselves seminar to prepare me to teach a high school Sunday school class. From those experiences, I ditched 2 careers to become a state certified educator. I became a teacher at Craigmont Junior High School, an optional school for international studies, and was recruited by Reverend Burton Carley to apply for the position of DRE 7 years later. And y'all have been stuck with me ever since, for better or worse. I have experienced my tenure here as a vocational calling. Serving as your DRE has filled my working life with purpose, and I've tried to maintain an attitude of servant leadership. And I've been rewarded seeing children and youth grow and discover their own sense of purpose, their own passion, their own calling for more than 20 years. And it is time to offer that opportunity to the next generation. This will be my last program year as your Director of Religious Education. I plan to retire and answer the next call to serve the church and our faith, Unitarian Universalism, in different ways, and to serve that family that has now become a family, including more parents, more cats, more dogs, more children, and my 3 beautiful grandchildren. When I entered the Emerson Wing in 1990 and dropped off my 7, 5, and 1-year-old, I could not have imagined that I would one day drop off my grandchildren in the same sacred space. It's simply unbelievable, and it is a blessing. May every family that takes a tentative, skeptical step into this space be embraced and served and supported always. And may this community embrace and serve and support family ministry and the next generation of its leaders always. Thank you.